as you might know, anyone who works in holistic health comes with their own story of healing. I'll keep this to about a minute just to kind of keep your attention. So I had about 30 years worth of eczema, and I was always given the same kind of treatments which never addressed the underlying cause of why I had eczema. So it was, throughout childhood, my teenage years, late 20s, and it wasn't until my dad suffered a stroke when I actually realized that the underlying cause of his stroke and the hypertension that led to his stroke was actually behind the eczema I'd had my whole life, and also the asthma he'd had since he was 12, which is a fully reversible condition. So since 2015, my focus has been helping people to reverse chronic inflammatory health conditions. And there's really almost every illness you can think of is rooted in this one underlying cause. Pick a chronic illness, any chronic illness, it starts with chronic inflammation. And in its simplest form, it can be described as toxicity and or chronic stress and deficiency in essential cell fuels. So that's a very broad, simplified version. And I just wanted to begin with that because it helps to set the context, hopefully. So I see any kind of chronic illness as a chronic symptom of an underlying cause, much like your car dash warning lights will say, tend to your engine, the oil light is on, time to go and pay attention, see what's happening, is it time for an oil change, get under the hood, figure out why the body has fallen out of balance. So that's how I see the body, and that's how I've been working with people since about 2015, actually.
You may have already answered my question. God, so I love this area too, Neil, so I could go for hours, but you said the basic cause of any illness is inflammation. What causes inflammation? And I guess you've kind of answered that.
My simplified version is when the body is exposed to any kind of threat, whether it's a physical threat or a perceived threat, that's when the body's immune system, which is a very healthy immune response, when we have inflammation, it's as if the immune system is protecting us from foreign or alien intruders. It's the army protecting us. It's a very healthy response. But when it happens again and again and again, that's when the body starts to create symptoms depending on our genetic code. And the other one, the perceived threat, is chronic stress. So when we're living in fight or flight and we're living by the hormones of stress, when that's chronic, it becomes a chronic situation. Short bouts of stress can be a good thing, but it's the chronic situation with stress that leads to chronic illness. And it's often spoken about how 90% of illness is down to chronic stress. So those are the two main things. It's basically toxins and chronic stress and deficiency in cell fuels that creates inflammation.
So the inflammation, to me, isn't the cause of the illness, it's the warning sign.
Yes. So I talk about how it's like the underlying cause. So if there's like a tree and the symptoms all here, you've got inflammation in the middle, and then underneath you've got the true causes. Is it mercury? Is it another toxin? And then above the inflammation, you've got all these different types of symptoms. So chronic inflammation is symptomatic of toxicity and stress, if you like, if you really want to simplify it. And then above the chronic inflammation, you have all the different symptoms.
Right.
Does that make sense? I'll often share this with a graphic.
Yeah, Neil, I'm glad you mentioned at the end there how important our emotional state is, and that we have to learn to let go of as well. One of the reasons we age differently than other species of animals, like dogs, for instance, live to be 7 times their maturity rate. They live to be 14, 15 years old. We as humans should be living to be 130, 140 years old, but we don't, because we beat the crap out of ourselves. We hold on to our emotional baggage, and it ages us. We hold on to resentments and angers. We also hold on to sentimentality and nostalgia and all of that. Totally. So the idea is to allow anything that comes and goes to pass through us, and I just want to leave it at that.
Yeah. And related to that, the organs weep the tears the eyes refuse to shed. One of my favorite quotes by William Osler. If we don't release that trapped energy, it gets stored. 15 seconds, Jared, if you're there.
Do you have a checklist of the things you mentioned on your website or on YouTube? Like all the things.
Checklist, great question. I was going to say my book. I'm creating a checklist right now.